This Teraflex 4-inch lift kit with flex arms but without shocks is for those of you that have a 2007 and up 4-door JK and are interested in getting a big lift. 4 inches of lift is enough to run a 37-inch set of tires, and if you are going to be running something smaller, I would probably recommend a smaller lift kit because you are going to have some very large wheel well gaps. This kit is going to be a pretty expensive kit as far as lift kits go because it does include all 8 control arms, but that also means you're going to get a ton of function from this kit. Now, I'll say it's a very complete kit because it does include a lot of components, pretty much everything you're going to need to complete your lift except for those shocks. There is a version of this lift kit that includes the shocks if you would want to go with that option, or you can go with this option and add your own shocks from any one of the brands out there. Now, because you are getting so many components and such high quality components, I do think that the higher price you have to pay for this kit is worth it. This install is going to be a 2 out of 3 wrench installation, probably take you 3 to 4 hours, maybe even a little bit more depending on what tools you have at your disposal and how you're doing this. The lift in this kit is provided by a set of Teraflex's 3.5-inch springs and a 1/2-inch spacer in both the front and the rear. Just running a small 1/2-inch spacer isn't going to affect performance much, but it is going to give you that full 4 inches of lift height that you will want if you're running a set of 37s and you're looking for a ton of room to travel and articulate. You really want to be able to crawl rocks and you don't want to have any sort of issues with the tire contacting the body. This is also going to include all of the bump stops and bump stop extensions that you're going to need to run a 37-inch tire with this setup and not end up with any rubbing. Of course, because this kit doesn't include shocks, you are going to want to make sure that you spec those shocks for the proper length after you have the kit installed to ensure you don't have any issues as far as that goes. Included in this kit as well are a set of control arms. Again, this is going to include all 8 adjustable control arms. That's really going to allow you to center the axles in the wheel well front to back. It's also going to allow you to set your pinion angle in the front and the rear and your caster angle up front. The caster angle is going to ensure that you don't get any of that wandery feeling, that flighty feel when you're driving down the highway. And of course, the pinion angles are going to help ensure that you don't have any sort of driveline vibration or premature driveline wear. This kit's also going to include one of Teraflex's Monster forged track bars. This is an adjustable front track bar that will allow you to center that front axle left to right underneath the Jeep, and it also makes sure you're not going to get any sort of flex out of your track bar when you're running a big set of 37-inch tires, which can end up feeling a little bit like a wobble by the time it works its way up through the steering system and into your hands in the steering wheel. You have your rear track bar bracket, so this kit doesn't come with an adjustable rear track bar, but it does come with a bracket that's going to flatten out that track bar angle. And this does have 3 different spots to mount your track bar so you can dial in and customize your roll center and really get whatever feel out of the suspension you're looking for. This kit's also going to include a new set of longer brake lines, which is something I really like. A lot of kits will include a brake line extension bracket, but sometimes you have to bend a factory hard brake line to make those work. Having a new set of longer soft brake lines, in my opinion, is the right way to get max flex without having to worry about pulling a brake line taut. And even though the install is a little bit more involved because you do have to open up the braking system and then go ahead and bleed all the air out, put some fresh fluid in, usually that's something you need to do anyway. So in my opinion, well worth the additional work you have to do when installing this kit. This install is going to be a 2 out of 3 wrench installation, probably take you 3 to 4 hours, maybe even a little bit more depending on what tools you have at your disposal and how you're doing this. You can certainly get a lift kit like this installed in your driveway with just a jack and jack stands and some hand tools, a socket set, and some wrenches. However, if you have a lift, if you have air tools or power tools, it's definitely going to speed the process along. Anytime you're doing any type of work like this, I always recommend spraying all of the nuts and bolts that are going to be loosened up with a good penetrating oil well before you get started with this installation. It's just going to pay dividends in the end and save your knuckles when you're removing those possibly rusted bolts. So the first step in this installation is going to be jacking up the Jeep, supporting it by the frame, and then removing or loosening anything that holds the axles from completely drooping down. That's going to mean your brake line brackets, your track bars, your sway bars, and your shocks. Once you have all of that removed, you can go ahead and droop the axle down, which will allow you to remove those factory springs. After that, you can pop in your new springs with your spring spacers and go to reassembling the Jeep. Now, before you put any weight on those new springs, that's the time when you're going to want to install those new control arms. Now, when you have no weight on the axle, you can really go ahead and disconnect all of the control arms at once if you want to. Do them one at a time, one side at a time, however you decide is best for you. Because these are adjustable, Teraflex gives you a measurement that you'll want to set these to as sort of a starting measurement. And then if you do want to dial in the pinion caster angle or how centered your axle is in the wheel well. After that, you can go ahead and make those further adjustments. Now, anytime you're working with a adjustable control arm like this, I recommend using a good anti-seize on the threaded part of the control arm. However, make sure you don't get any anti-seize underneath the jam nut, or the jam nut's not going to be able to do its job. At this point, you're just back to reassembling the Jeep. Instead of putting those factory sway bar end links back in place, you're going to put these ones, including the sway bar quick disconnects, bolt up your new track bar bracket, and finally swap out those brake lines for the new longer ones and bleed the brake system out. This whole install, while it will take probably 3 to 4 hours, maybe a little bit more depending on your tools, isn't an overly difficult install. As far as lift kits go, it's going to be pretty straightforward without any sort of major modification to the Jeep necessary. This lift kit will run you $2,500, and because it does include all 8 control arms, I do think it's going to be a pretty fair price. Now, you're still going to have to go out and buy shocks, and depending on what brand you go with and the quality of the shock could add quite a few dollars to your build. But for what you're getting in this kit, again, I do think that it's a pretty fair price. The components are very high quality, and this is going to be something that will perform very well for a good long time. So if you're looking for a big lift to run some 37s, I would definitely recommend taking a look at the Teraflex 4-inch lift kit with flex arms, but without shocks, that you can find right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.